A very, very warm welcome to Allan and Barbara, and looking forward to this conversation. We are going to be keeping it very informal and chatty, like the style of their many, many books. There's a new book out called The Answer, which will be available very shortly all across India. In the meantime, you've been given a fantastic review of their work over the last many years. And this is their first time in Kolkata. They've come a very long way from Australia, where they live on the Sunshine Coast. So from the Sunshine Coast to Kolkata and the Hooghly, and a very lively audience, I'm sure we'll be able to share some fantastic stories with them. So a big round of welcome to both of them. Big shout out to Vinita as well and her entire team at the Times LitFest. This is the first LitFest in Kolkata, organized by the Times of India. It can only get bigger and better from this point on. As we can see, we've got a fantastic audience, and well done team, well done volunteers. Thank you all very much, all of you here, for being here. Thank you. Okay, now we will forget what Saurav's last comment was. We have Australian guests with us. We will only remember one line, which is, they play to win. And they're tough.
We published to win.
Yes, they published to win. And I'll get them to talk more about that. But let me start by asking a question which I think will open up the whole conversation, and they will be taking questions at the end of this. Are men and women really all that different?
Well, you know, that's the basic question of most of our work revolves around that, and it's interesting because by 2018 in most of the world and in India, it's become very fashionable to pretend to each other that men and women think the same way, want the same things, have the same goals and objectives. And if you've had any experience with the opposite sex, you'll know this is just not true. We don't want the same things. We don't have the same objectives. And the reason this has happened is because governments and political organisations have confused equality with difference. Equality is a political concept, which means that we can, as men and women, we can do anything we want, anything we choose. Difference is a science question. That's what we write about. We write about the differences. And difference means, as men and women, we don't want to do the same things. For example, 94% of the world's relationship counsellors are women. Now, we can say that this is sexist pig women holding men down and suppressing their rights, not letting them be relationship counsellors. Now, men don't want to be relationship counsellors. We don't want to do that. It's like listening to complaining people all day. 94% of the air traffic controllers in the world should be a men. And we can say these are sexist pig men holding women down, stopping them from being air traffic. Women don't want to be air traffic controllers. So our work revolves around the difference of how to live with the opposite sex because their brains are wired differently. And if you approach men and women on the same basis in your personal life, that they are now the same, want the same thing, you'll have nothing but disaster in your relationships, and you will not be able to convince and sell the opposite sex in business to say yes.
The thing is also is that in our books we say men and women are different. We're not better or worse. We're just different. And once you understand those differences, you can have happy relationships. When people say, oh, Barb, I'm winning in our relationship, it's always going my way, I always say to them, you're actually losing. Because the minute there's a winner in a relationship or a dominant person in that relationship, the other person is unhappy, and your life can never be happy when you've got someone controlling. So understand we're different, we're not better or worse. Just understand and have strategies for the opposite sex.
That's right. And if you manage the opposite sex, in fact, one of the things we say in our books is if you manage the opposite sex as though they have a mental illness. So if you pretend they have a mental illness and manage them according to that, because if they did have a mental illness, you would make adjustments to your own behaviour and manage them so that you could have a happy life. And that's what Barbara does with me. She manages me as though I've got a mental illness, which maybe I do. But I manage her as though she doesn't make any sense, and I don't get frustrated, and we've lived happily together for 30 years.
Not only have they been living happily together for 30 years, they've also had 6 children, 2 of them rather late, right? And it all seems to have worked out great, and they have 7 grandchildren. So they're obviously doing something right, and they haven't murdered each other still. Which is the running joke about people who've been together a long time, that when you're asked, have you ever considered divorce? And people say, well, no, but murder has certainly crossed my mind. But each page I open in any of their books has a little nugget which is so provocative that, to be able to collaborate on books of this nature with so much steam sort of coming out of your ears, given a completely diametrically opposite way of looking at the exact same principles. Now, both of you also mentioned that there's a great amount of research involved. So how does this research work? Do you invite people to share their stories?
Well, it happens a number of ways. First, I do most of the science research. I'm a science junkie. So I research what the facts are, what the research is that can either prove or indicate that something may be the case. So I'll come up with the science. Barbara comes up with the real-life stories, because women are great at coming up with real-life stories. And she comes up with the stories that explains why the science works, and then we put the two together and we make it funny. And so that's the formula, is to make it humour, to make it science, and to make it real stories. And that's been the formula that's worked really well for us for all of our books, because we're in what we call thin ice subjects, because one of our books is Women Can't Read Maps. Now, in America, they wouldn't call our book Women Can't Read Maps. They said that offends the feminists. And we said, well, that's the plan. We want to offend the feminists, because that's how media works. They want a controversial story. And so...
Do you also offend misogynists? Like as a plan, as a strategy?
Oh, occasionally, we found an interesting thing when we started doing media. The biggest book we've sold is Why Men Don't Listen, Women Can't Read Maps. That was number 1 worldwide. We sold 13 million copies of that. And one of the things we discovered early on doing talk shows and television shows, which most hosts are women in the world, is that they would bait me, because they say, Allan, now do you really believe that men are far better at reverse parking a car than women? And my response would be, yes. In fact, Chinese women are the worst in the world. In fact, they're so bad they should have their licences taken away, given a bus pass for public safety. And of course that would infuriate the audience. Now, Barbara would give the answers to why that was the case, because Barbara we run 5 businesses worldwide. She runs everything. She's the chief executive. I can't do that. I don't want to do that. But she can't park her car to save her life, right, darling?
No, and I'm not interested. I can find lots of people around the world to park my car for me.
It's called outsourcing.
Exactly. And that's what the feminists get upset when I say I can't do something. Well, I don't care. I don't care that I can't reverse park a car. It's not one of my skills. I don't have very good spatial skills. But there's lots of men out there that will park my car for me, and I can get on and do the things that I really love doing. If I really wanted to learn how to reverse park a car, I could practice and practice and practice, and I could become average at it.
You did, and it didn't work, darling.
Yeah,
come on.
It's just something that it doesn't interest me. But multitasking, I can do that. I can multitask on umpteen things, whereas Allan, you can give him one thing at a time.
One thing at a time.
That's what men are great at.
I do one thing at a time really, really well. But if, for example, I'm driving a car and Barbara rings me, I'm going to miss my turn off because I can't drive and talk.
But there's an interesting point about driving, maps, women at the wheel. It's also about directions. I think I read it in this particular book, where you say that you ask a woman, you give her directions like, look out for the house on the left, and then you'll come across a tree 100 down the road, and then there will be a pink, a booth, and then you take a left there. But the minute you start saying, you get off the highway 200 meters from this, and then there's a turnpike, and da-da-da-da-da-da,
north, south, east, west,
and everybody's lost. But I'm totally with you, Barbara. I cannot drive a car. I have no desire to learn. I have crashed too many cars which didn't belong to me, and I just can't do that to other people's cars.
Why stress yourself? Why stress yourself? Get someone else to drive you around.
Absolutely. But also when we were talking backstage, you did mention that more than calling yourselves authors, Allan said, he said we run a business. We run businesses. We are business people. So, what do you think is the vital difference between being an author stroke business person, or is it business person first and the books come later, depending on a marketing strategy? And you're clearly very good at it because look at the way your books sell. How does it work? The book first, idea first, or the business first?
Well, Alan is a professional speaker, so we travel around the world, and Alan does conferences up to 45,000 people at a time. And so we meet a lot of our fans, and they are the ones that usually tell us what they're having problems with. So, for example, they'll say, I'm having trouble in my relationship. And then we will get so many people asking us different questions, and that's when we start doing the research. So it's our fans that tell us what they need from us, and then we create the book. Our books take a long time, sometimes up to 10 years of research before we'll put the book out. And then our business comes after that. So it's a really, we're unusual in the fact that we're multifaceted. So we're not just authors that write and go to fairs. We're authors that write but also go to conferences. We do a lot of media. So we're out in the public, and our number one thing is to change the world, give people better communication skills. Our latest book is called The Answer, which is helping people that have blockages. They don't know what they want in their life, and they will say to us, we don't know how to get where we want to go because we don't know what we want to do. So this book is helping millions of people around the world, teaching them how to find their passion, their goal, and how do they get to it. So we teach those strategies in the book, and it's changing people's lives all around the world.
Well, I think we're also different from most authors. So I listened to Rusty this morning. I thought he was great. We haven't seen him before. He's a gem, that guy. And we know there are a lot of authors here. How many of you here currently are an author or are planning on being an author? Raise your hand. Who's got a book? Raise your hand.
We all have books in us. Come on.
Who's got a book in? Who reckons you've got a book in?
We all have books in us.
Raise your hand if you reckon you've got a book.
Some write them, some don't.
Okay, if you've got a book and
there you go.
Come to our session this afternoon. The Answer will show you how to do this. Now we're different from most authors. That most authors that we meet love writing. I know you said you love writing, and some of our friends will write 40, 50 pages a day and love it. Personally, I don't like writing. I find it difficult. I find it a chore. Barbara's good at it. I don't like it myself much, and I'll do whatever I have to do to avoid it. But here's the difference with us. We are not authors first. We are marketing and sales people first. Authors, television, everything else is second. Because authors make terrible business decisions. Most authors we know don't make much money. They don't. They find it difficult. So by making business decisions first, you can then build a financial life around yourself as well. So we are authors second, business people first. And that's different to what most authors are.
But I really love this honest admission, because today's generation of young authors in India, also, I call them the spreadsheet authors. They first start out with a business plan, and then they figure there has to be a book in there somewhere, and they work it backwards. And from my generation of writers, with a highly idealized, kind of an attitude to writing, not spiritual, just romanticized view of writing, this comes to me as a bit of a shock. But this is the way forward, and you guys cracked it a long, long time ago. Now, how do your children actually, because you do acknowledge them even in your author's notes, they help with your basic understanding of a younger generation? Do they contribute in terms of ideas?
Well, there are lots of examples about our children in our books and in Alan's seminars. So yes, they're always teaching us about the newer generation.
Well, we've got 6 children. We have 2 Generation X, 2 Ys and 2 Zs, millennials. So we've got our own social experiment going on around us all the time. And it's good for us because we're older parents. We're relatively fairly old compared to you guys. And we have young kids and old kids. In fact, our kids, we have grandchildren that are older than our kids as well. And so we get to hear about what they think, how they speak, the words they use. Like all kids, they think everything they do is completely original. And all this original is a bit of technology added onto the same things that kids have been doing for hundreds of thousands of years. And so they reaffirm things about life that we already know as adults.
Do they ever feel that you're intruding into their lives, cannibalizing their experiences? do they see themselves in your books and say, hey, that wasn't meant for publication?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because I have to deal with it a lot with my own children.
Well, we had a classic example a while ago. One of the things we talk about in Why Men Don't Listen book is indirect talk, which is a female specialty. And we discovered in 33 countries in the world, this is a specialty for women everywhere, where men everywhere talk in direct terms. Now, direct terms means that men talk in shorter sentences than women. We have words and phrases that articulate exactly what we want to say. We have an opening and an ending. And when we're finished speaking, we stop and we look blankly at you. So you know that we're finished. Now, for women, that can be seen as aggressive. So women talk in what's called indirect terms. And indirect terms means, I'm talking to the men now, that when she's talking with you guys, she's not telling you exactly what she wants or expects. She's giving hints and clues and hoping that you guys in your wisdom can work it out. But for most men, it's a big mystery. Now, a typical example. Barbara says to me recently, she's putting on some earrings to go to a function. And we've got our two oldest daughters are there. And she says to me, should I wear the pearls or should I wear the diamonds with this outfit? Okay, I've got a question for the men in the room. A woman has just said to you, should I wear pearls, should I wear diamonds? Raise your hand if you would choose something. Raise your hand. Be honest. Put your hand up if you would choose it. Wrong! Now, the first thing to understand with this is that she has already decided what she's going to wear before she's asked the question. It's a trap. And you're not supposed to answer. And so, now, I know that you're not supposed to answer. When a woman says, should I wear blue shoes, red shoes, should I wear black, should I wear white? She's really saying, I want you to tell me I look beautiful tonight in everything I'm wearing. The correct answer is you look beautiful in everything. I love you is the correct answer. Where most of you guys would pick or go for the pearls. Now, if you pick the pearls, she's going to say, what's wrong with the diamonds? You've got a problem with the diamonds. And suddenly you say, if you don't want my opinion, stop asking me, and you have a really bad night. Now, the key is not to answer the question. So this happened the other night. Barbara's, oh, you don't know anything. And then she put on a pair of hoops. Now, the point is that when a woman says, should I do this, should I do that, fellas, it's not a problem-solving exercise. Most men think it's problem-solving. They say, do this. And she says, well, what's wrong with that? And suddenly you've got an argument and you get punished. And there are 5 punishments that we identified for all men, including Indian men, that you get punished for bad behaviour. You want to know some of these punishments?
Of course, you must punish men for being, completely insensitive when all you want is reassurance.
We're not completely insensitive. We're men.
Yeah, but we're women. We need reassurance. We need to be told we're looking wonderful, and we need someone to say, pearls, diamonds, no matter what you wear. That kind of stuff.
Men don't know this. We think this is a problem-solving exercise.
Well, here you have, this question goes to Barbara, because I think a woman can answer it much better. Don't nag men, train them. Are men like puppies? They can be trained with reward, punishment. How do you train men?
I believe that you can train people and train men, but I don't really like the word train. I like to do it a lot in a subtle way. The thing is that you reward them for the good behaviour and then you teach them when it's not the right way to.
Is this me or is this kids? Which one is this?
Both. So I believe that with men and women, it's negotiation. That's the biggest point. To negotiate with your partner and find a solution for what is upsetting your relationship. So if you have a partner who's messy and you're very neat, then you need to find a room that you can put the stuff in that's annoying you. And again, it stops conflict. Because stop fighting each other, learn your differences, have your strategies, and you're going to have a happy life. Some people say to us, well, we'll just get rid of one partner and we'll find another. Yes, you can do that, but then that partner is going to have a set of circumstances that's going to make you unhappy. So again, negotiate. Don't be the winner, be in a happy relationship.
If you go back to even a generation ago, when people got divorced, they used to call it irreconcilable differences. But what we're saying, that with science, and we show this very clearly, that most differences are reconcilable. If you understand where they come from and why that person's doing that, rather than getting upset about it, it becomes quite funny. So, for example, Barbara will say to me, when she bring a car to a hotel, she gives me the keys and said, will you park the car? Now, 30 years ago, I'd say, if you could learn to park this car, I wouldn't have to get out there in the rain. I wouldn't have to do... If you could read a map, darling, we wouldn't be lost all the time. I don't do that now because I know that with brain scans...
You're better trained.
Absolutely.
Well, perfectly trained now.
I'm a man. I like to think that I've made my own choice here. that with brain scans, she doesn't have great spatial awareness in the right part of the brain, which most men do, which is the ability to find your way around. She's got other things I haven't got, but parking and finding your way around are not two of them. So as a result, if she wants me to park the car, I will go and park the car, and I understand why I'm doing it. And when I come back into the house, I'm a hero. There's benefits.
The other thing in too is, do we really want to be married to someone who is exactly like us? Isn't the differences what it makes life exciting? Instead of fighting the differences, embrace them and have strategies. So if I get upset and I start waffling and I bring in 5 different topics, Allan doesn't go, oh, goodness gracious. He'll say, slow down, one thing at a time. And then I'll go, oh, right, okay. And then, so we have strategies, because you are always going to be a female or a male brain, and you're always going to go back to that strategy. But if your partner says, hold on, I can only take one thing in at a time, and you understand that, then you're not going to have arguments.
Do you think women make better emotional strategists? Are men just better
manipulators, let's be accurate on this.
Sorry? Men do.
Manipulators.
Manipulators. Women in the audience. Not strategists, manipulators.
You're manipulating the audience now.
No. We must instantly protest.
He's just a very cheeky person, but women are very, very good at making strategies, because we have to. We're the carers of our children. We have to understand when they can't speak. We have to be able to read their body language and know what they need. And again, we are the ones that keep the family together. So if there's any issues, it's the women that need to pull and have the strategies to make the family happy.
No question about that at all. There's a quote that I've been desperately looking for, which I would like to share with our audience. It has to do with the penis. It's in bold letters. I just can't seem to find it. That it's really the penis, the male sex organ.
Or the penis.
Or well, we call it penis. You can call it what you wish. The male sex organ, and how it's really that which is the main focus of everything else. Man thinks from that particular anatomical bit of his body, and everything else, you said, comes with the territory. I mean, it's an add-on. The rest of the male self, including the brain, I assume, is a bonus if he has one.
Well, yes, that's true. I mean, scientifically and biologically, that's true. We know that brain scans of male fetuses in the womb, he's got hold of it at 6 weeks of age in the womb, and it doesn't stop until he dies. That's true. And one of the issues that we have as human beings is that we only give birth to one child every year. Now, for any species that gives birth to one child every year, that species is in danger of being eliminated. They're going to disappear. And so to solve part of that problem, men have been given 10 to 20 times more testosterone than women, which means that way we can keep the species going. And I'm not trying to say that Charles Darwin made us do it, but essentially that's what happens. And when testosterone blocks the front lobes, it allows for rational thinking, which gives rise to that expression that most men think with their little head rather than their big one.
Well, there's a very provocative quote right here, and considering it is one of the biggest issues facing the world, and we've just done away with Section 377 in India, which is the LGBT rights. You say here, a woman wants a man who's soft, caring, understanding, and will communicate, but is also strong, rugged, and masculine. But she can't have him. He's already got a boyfriend.
Yeah, well, that's one of the dilemmas of modern women. When you ask women, what do you want, they say things that women have demanded from men for maybe 100,000 years. We want a guy who's got a slight V shape. We like him to have nice chest and shoulders, not too big, because that means he loves his own body more than mine. So he just looks good. He's got nice legs, got a chiseled chin, a pointed nose ideally, which means high testosterone. And then on the other hand, modern women say now also wanting to be caring, sensitive and understanding. Now, that combination has not existed in men in human history. This is a brand new thing. Now, gay guys, you're going to get that, yes. But most women want a straight guy. And so as a result of that, women need to understand that finding that guy is almost impossible. If you're a man, you need to understand that if you are... Look, we're at the gym. We go to the gym every morning. At the gym, there are guys pushing weights, trying to look like they can catch a dinosaur. And there are women in there running and trying to make themselves thinner and look useful. In the same gym, it's not equal, but they've got different objectives, because men are looking for youth and health, and women are looking for a guy who looks like he can catch a dinosaur. And that's why men push weights.
There is also a quote from feminist writer we all admire greatly, Germaine Greer. It says, "Men prefer looks to brains because most men can think better than they can. More men prefer looks to brains because most men can see better than they can think."
Well, that's true, and that's what happens with men. Testosterone clouds high testosterone. If you're a front row football player or cricket player, you've got high testosterone to be able to do that job, and it clouds the frontal lobes, which is your ability to make rational decisions, and that's why men have difficulty when it comes to love. Women don't have the same testosterone, so they have just enough testosterone to keep the species ticking over, to keep us going. Because if women had the same amount of testosterone and sex drive as men, you would be having babies to men that are completely unsuitable. So you need to be able to sit back to make a decision, to slowly pick what sort of guy you want. And that's where women are better emotionally tuned, because they're looking for a guy who has the emotional tunings as opposed to the physical ones, which they want as well.
The most common emotional blackmailers are family members and close friends. Is that correct? Is that your research? Is that what it established?
It is. Most families do that to each other, which is sad. Again, in that book we give lots of strategies on how to not be emotionally blackmailed, because we've been raised with our family. It's easier for us to accept emotional blackmail from your mother or your sisters or whoever's closest, because we get worked up because we're hurting them, but they're actually hurting us. So we have a lot of strategies in the book that teaches you not to accept it. You wouldn't accept that behaviour from your best friend, and you're not to accept that behaviour from your family, who know you better and can emotionally blackmail you better.
Well, one of the things that most people would have found in their life, and you would have found as we all do, is that you decide you want to do something, set a goal, go somewhere, achieve something, and if you were to go and tell 10 strangers in the street, I'm going to leave India and go to America and work as a television executive, for example, 10 strangers might say, good for you, well done, congratulations. They might even want to give you, 1 in 5 people will try to help you do it. You go and tell your family members what you want to do and see what happens to you. You want to do what? I mean,
You've got a great job. What are you leaving to go
right.
to America for? Who's going to look after me in my old age if you're living in America?
Dying, the dog's sick. And they give you reason, and this is one of the reasons why so many people have difficulty moving forward to anything in their lives, because they come up with things they want to do, and the people who love you most are normally the ones who are the biggest obstacles. So come to our session, The Answer, this afternoon. We're going to teach you how to tell family members to go to hell in such a way they're looking forward to the trip.
It doesn't mean that it means they love you a lot. They're doing it out of love more so than anything else.
That's right, but they still stop.
Here's another one which I'd love you both to comment on. Men's brains are monotracked. They can't make love and answer questions on why they haven't taken out the garbage at the same time. Do women really ask men in the middle of bunking, why haven't you taken out the garbage?
Women everywhere talk to men in love making.
We've had lots of people who talk about what their partners say when they're lovemaking, and it always happens. Men cannot focus on 2 things at the one time. So again, in our book, it teaches you that men have a monotrack brain. They need to be given one thing at a time, and they're absolutely brilliant at it. Whereas women, we can do multiple of things at the one time, and we do them really well as well.
Yeah, one of the basic tenets of all our writings and research is brain structure in terms of communication. And in simple terms, male brain is what we call monotracked. In other words, they're compartmentalised, and they allow male brain people, and when I say male brain people, we're not talking about all men. 1 in 5 women has male brain. You look like a woman, but you think more in male terms. It doesn't mean that you're gay, but bigger chance that could be the case. But you're probably a straight woman who thinks in masculine terms. You can park a car. You do know where you've left your car and can find it. You might even know who's playing cricket next week, but you're not that good on small talk. You want to get to the point fast. So men love you because men like short conversations. Women's brains, on the other hand, are what we call multitasking. That is, they're likely to have the same brain function in several parts. And you see this with speech and language. Men have between 4 and 6 brain centres for speech and language. Women have 14 to 16, and they're combined with other speech languages, giving women what's called multi-tracking ability. Now, one of the early things we found that was really riveting and a significant change, if you get this one on board, this will change your life, is that female brain people have the ability to speak and listen simultaneously. and they can do this on several unrelated subjects, but men either speak or listen. This is what MRI scans show. Men speak or listen. That's why when they talk to each other, ladies, they have turns. They're not all talking at the same time. Where women can talk about several unrelated things at once, this can happen in one sentence. So she starts on the first subject, halfway through without warning, introduces the second subject, and he thinks it's still the first one. So we're sitting there thinking, what the hell is she talking about? And he doesn't know. Then she brings in the third one. All the women listening know 3 things were being discussed. He has no idea what this is about. Now, in your personal life, he might say things like, does this conversation have a point? That's the first thing he's like to say. In business, this is a disaster for you, ladies, because men will pretend they followed what was going on and they'll walk away, won't have any idea what you said, and you're sitting around waiting for an answer and you don't get one. Give them one thing at a time.
We may get the deal, though, because the men don't want to go confess they were confused to start with and they hadn't really listened. So it's an advantage. It's a tactical advantage, I think.
We don't want to be wrong.
It's not?
No, definitely not. If the person that's making the decision is a man, you have to manspeak. You have to be direct and to the point, and he will listen to you and he'll think, wow, she knows what she's talking about. If I go into a business meeting and I start waffling on and bringing in 5 or 6 different subjects that he doesn't know where I'm going with, he's going to be going, well, I really don't want to do business with her. So you need to understand there are differences. If it was a female that I was presenting to, then by all means I can bring in as many subjects as I like. But again, you have to deal with who's sitting in front of you in a business situation.
Well, how about a new book where we can train men to respond to female corporate heads who can be speaking about 5 different things? Why does it always have to be women listening to a male boss corporate head and doing presentations that make sense to him? Let him try and understand what women are saying.
But that's what I was saying to you. It depends who's sitting in front of you. If it's a male boss and you're trying to present to him, it's no good presenting to him like a female. You have to present to him like a male. If it's a female boss in front of me, then I'm going to be in my natural element, which is multi-tracking, talking the way that women enjoy speaking. So again, it's understanding the differences and working with that.
So you've got to remember too that 96% of the world's CEOs this year are men, not women. 4% of CEOs in the world are women. Now, because they get pushed into the view all the time, it gives the illusion that there are a lot of CEO women, which is not true. It's like airline pilots. 98% of airline pilots in the world are still men in a supposedly equal society. And but the 2% women are featured in all the advertisements because of Equality Act laws in most countries, you have to have the women in, which gives the illusion that at least half women, or maybe a quarter of women at worst, are airline pilots.
I must boast a little here, and I think India has one of the highest number of female pilots.
They do.
And commanders, so it's something we are very proud of.
They do.
Yes.
Yeah, more than most others. And it's interesting reason as to why that is the case. And we haven't done any brain scans on you lot to find out why, but that is an interesting thing, that there are more female female engineers also in this country than in most.
That's correct, and surgeons.
Yeah.
But now here's an interesting quote again. When a man sees a naked woman, he becomes dumbstruck. When a woman sees a naked man, she usually bursts into laughter.
Very true.
Why? Are men's bodies particularly what?
Well,
amusing?
Men focus on one thing at a time. So when a gorgeous woman goes past, they go. Now, we were in a coffee lounge recently, and there was some guy serving a coffee to the women, and the women were all talking about this guy, so clearly he was some sort of a dish, a doll. I'm a straight guy, so I can't tell. But they all obviously thought this guy was a bit of all right. And every time they go past, they'd all start talking and emoting. Yet the woman who went past with the coffee had really nice boobs, and all the men were just... Because we focus on one thing at a time. Where women can focus on the guy and talk and carry out other conversations as though nothing's happening. And that's why women don't get caught looking at men's bodies at the beach and at the swimming pool.
And the thing is that you're picking all these amazing quotes out of our book. And again, we've put those quotes in to get people thinking about it. So there's the science. These quotes are being quoted, but the science is in the book. So you can read about the science. You can read about how they affect your life. And the quote is to make you think more and laugh. And that's the formula that our books have.
Yeah, the more delicate the subject that we talk about, particularly when it comes to sex, because we wrote a book about sex called Why Men Want Sex, Women Need Love, which is on how the brain responds to love, sex and romance. And the more delicate the subject, we found the more people need to laugh to be able to dispel the nervous energy when talking about that subject.
The chapter that I really enjoyed the most was on retirement, because it's extremely insightful about how men and women respond when they suddenly start to feel redundant or they feel. And I think in the book you say that women can take retirement far better, and that men are really devastated, and it can lead to drunken bouts and so on. So if you'd like to answer that, and that's my final question, we're going to be throwing it open to the audience after this.
We had a really good friend. He was the CEO of HarperCollins Australia, and he retired because he had cancer. And one of the stories is in there. And his wife was driven mad. She had been at home for a long time. She had lots of friends. She went to lunches with her girlfriends. She'd set up an amazing network, and he had been the CEO of an amazing publishing house, and he retired and had nothing. He had no support group, he had nothing. So in his CEO role as a husband, he started managing her. Where are you going? What's happening today? She'd say, well, I'm doing this, this and this. And he'd say, I've looked at that plan and you're driving in the wrong direction. You should be doing this first, this second, this third. And he was trying to manage her because his whole life had been about managing. And in the end, she said to me, I used to have to run away from him until he got his own life. So men have been out there hunting. A lot of women in retirement, they've already set up their social network. They've got children, they've got grandchildren, they've got friends. Men have been out hunting. They are focused on their career and they forget about all of those things. So what we say in the book is, when your man is retiring, you need to be helping him get into playing golf or whatever it is, or even donating his time to a charity and let him be in charge of that charity. So retirement is sad for men, not so hard for women, but for men, we need to be helping them.
Well, see, if you look at men's evolution, for hundreds of thousands of years, men have had one very clear job. They get up when the sun rises, when it's safe. They go out, they find something to hit for lunch on them with their right hand, because 92% of men are dominant right-handed, and their spatial awareness, they hit that target, then they bring it home and they feed people, and that's it. That's the only thing that men have ever done. Women have always had at least 5 different parts of their lives, which are the 5 parts Barbara talked about. So when men come to retirement age, the mythical age of 65, they stop, then they have absolutely nothing. Whereas a woman gets to retirement age, she's got 5 things, 1 finishes. So now she's still got 4 which expand. Now, if men retire to nothing, this is very simple, gentlemen, you will die early. When men have no reason to get out of bed, they get sick and they die early. So what it means is, don't retire, which is my case. I'll never retire. I'll die with a microphone in my hand. That's the plan. You just don't retire. The minute you retire to pick weeds, do nothing, you will get sick, fat, and you will die. Science shows that very clearly. If you retire to do something, that means that you join the Rotary or you join the Lions, you join some club or do something with expertise where you have a reason to get out of bed in the morning and go hunting. The minute you've lost your reason to go hunting, gentlemen, it's over. So you buy a motorcycle, a pair of aviator glasses and a boat, your life's finished within a couple of years after retirement.
You both have been absolutely fabulous. We've had a great audience. Thank you very much. Allan, Barbara, it was one of the most wonderful, insightful sessions that I have moderated. And now we're going to throw it open to questions from the audience. We have about 7 minutes to take them. So maybe we'll take 3. There's a lady out there. Do we have traveling mics? And there are 2 gentlemen up front. Do we have traveling mics? Be careful, be careful.
Yeah. What's your take on that man cannot tolerate a successful wife for a partner?
Barbara, you need to answer that. It's their session, remember? Yeah. It's their session. Barbara, you want to answer that?
I think men have evolved as the hunter, and we see this in a lot of our relationship counselling, where the woman is the dominant and she's more successful than him, and it really does affect the relationship. So my advice to people in that situation is, again, need to talk about it and need to have strategies, because he should be as proud as you would be if it was reversed. But again, it just takes time and strategies for the couple to get on, because he feels like he is the weaker in the relationship, and that's not good for the relationship. You need to be equal. There should not be one above the other to have a successful relationship. So again, it's having strategies, talking about it, and not making him feel that he is not as successful as you.
In the United States, 1 in 3 women now earn more than their husbands or their male partners, 1 in 3. And it's difficult for a lot of men because if you look at the historic evolution of human beings, men have always been the leaders, the dominant ones, the ones who put their neck on the lines, the ones who die early, the ones who get out there and try to solve problems. And suddenly we're now living in 2018 in a society that behaves very differently. But our ancient drives have not gone away. I mean, 50 years of social change and feminism does not change the urges and drives that have been put in there for 100,000 years or more. So as a result of that, we become confused. We become confused that we have these ancient drives to want things and have things, but the society says, no, we can't do this anymore. Now, if you're in a situation where, let's take Barbara and I as a good case. Barbara's the chief executive of all our businesses. We run 5 different businesses and she runs them all. I only do 3 things. I do one thing at a time of those 3 things. I do them really well too. Outside those 3, I don't know how you do what you do, darling, because I don't want to do that. I just do the one thing. And as a result of that, sometimes, say, for example, in Japan, Barbara's a superstar. In Japan, I'm a handbag. I travel along behind her. Yeah, we all get a turn. In Australia, it's the other way around. I'm the face band and she's a handbag. And we both acknowledge that and take turns. So I will support her in her chosen endeavours to make her number one where necessary, and vice versa. And the minute you try to beat each other, you're in serious trouble. So understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses and building on those is the key, because your strengths and weaknesses won't be the same. I mean, I don't want to wake up and look at me. I want to wake up and look at her.
One of the other comments that I'll make is that sometimes women who are in CEO positions or are head of corporations, or their position is higher than their partner, they come back into their home and they're still the CEO and they're actually talking down to their partner. So one of the strategies that I give women is that take your time, go into the house and de-stress and go back to being feminine, because you don't want to be the CEO in your own household in terms of being hierarchical. So again, that's a really good strategy for women. Make your man feel comfortable if you're in that position.
Yeah, that's a good point, that one, because Barb runs the business. She runs the business like a man would run the business. She's got a very strong control over it all. But sometimes when the business is finished, and if you're working as a partnership, and one of the questions that we got asked by a few people before, how do you work as a partnership and write together? You do it by agreeing who does what job. And so whatever I do, Barbara doesn't interfere unless it's absolutely necessary. Whatever she does, I don't interfere unless it's absolutely necessary. Plus, that means if it screws up, it's her fault. So I'm happy with that.
Me too.
What are we talking about, darling?
We have a question up in front. Would you like to identify yourself?
Bhaskar Jha. I am Bhaskar Jha. First of all, it is very heartening to see a man sitting in the middle and dealing with 2 women and discussing the body and the language. But
very
today,
scared.
in this world of the burgeoning technology, the body is losing its language and the language is losing its body, because of the technological onslaught. Because today there are so many artificial men and women are being created with artificial intelligence. So there is a danger to the future of mankind, particularly women and man. So
Yes.
in
Do
this,
you sense that both of you are danger to...
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And one of the things you notice is that brain scans done on Generation Ys 2 years ago shows that Gen Ys in every country in the world now have around 10% less connections in the brain that deal with identifying emotions in the face. and that's their grandparents. And that's because they're spending their time looking at a screen, whereas my generation, your generation, we're raised to look at a person, so we've learnt the code of reading their face and their emotions. Now, younger generations don't do this, so they have lost the connections. Now, with the advent of Skype and broadcast type, it's brought back a different feel because we've gone from text only. Suddenly now we're seeing people on the screen, and we can behave differently with them because a lot of people feel that we're losing our ability to read body language. Face-to-face, that's true, but with Skype, it's important to understand that you can do things with Skype you can't do face-to-face. So when you've got somebody on a Skype interview, you're not distracted by everything that's going on around you, the crowd. And the other thing with Skype, you can stare at a person's face and look at every emotion on them, which you cannot do face-to-face. And so as a result, it's becoming more important now to understand the reading and the meanings behind body signals than it ever was in human history if you're going to be successful for business in the future, because we've gone through the texting-only era, but that's now swinging back the other way, and very soon, if not already, it will be visual, where we're looking at the people either in a hologram or on a screen.
And we
Excellent.
actually have found in our VIP weekends, we have weekends where people come and join us, and the younger generation, and we've had pilots, nurses, and salespeople come and say, we text girls and we have a really good rate and we have a great relationship, but when we go on a date, we sit across from them and we do not know how to communicate with the opposite sex. We are here to learn that. So the younger generation absolutely need help with body language and how to be open and how to read someone if they've said something wrong. So we are teaching the younger generation on how to read body language.
Yeah, but also the younger generation now is confused by these politically correct ideals that men and women want the same things, have the same urges. So men don't feel the urge to want to romance women anymore because that's not necessary in an equal society. But it doesn't matter whether a woman is a CEO of a big company or whether she's not. She still wants to be romanced. And the same with men. Men don't think like women. When it comes to talking, men don't want to listen more than about 10 minutes. We get brain damage.
The last question, please. There's a person with the mic here. I'm sorry, we're going to have to wind this up really quickly. So that's the last question. I'm so sorry.
This is Krishnendu Guha from Kolkata.
You need to hold it closer.
This is Krishnendu Guha from Kolkata. Mr. Gentleman in particular, and for all men in general, that you must be rest assured that God has given more virtues to women. Please admit this. I admit
more virtues. God has given more virtues to women.
God has women are endowed with more virtues than men. That
He
is
wants
for sure.
you to publicly admit that
is for sure. And this world would have been
virtuous.
and this world would have been a much safer place had this world been run by women. That is for sure also.
World would have been a much better place had it been run by women.
There is no doubt. And
There's no
most
doubt.
importantly, I take a leap of relevance. The terrorism menace across the world, I don't want to mention any community. It is because of less education to that particular community, to the woman. You see, in India, you got the cue. I believe
We've got it. We got it.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
got it.
Thank
So
you very
it
much.
is, it is due to women's liberation, women's education. It is due to this. The society would be much beneficial.
Okay, I can summarise this for you. God-given talents. Women have God-given talents. Men just either don't have or don't get. But on the other hand, men have also talents that women don't understand, don't get. They're not better or worse. They're different. This is the point. And when it came to giving out the talents, God had a large bag of talents, and He would reach into a bag and ask Adam and Eve, "Which one do you want?" And they would pick one. He got down to the end of the barrel, and He had one left, which is peeing standing up. And Adam said, "I've got to have peeing standing up. Please give me peeing standing up." And Eve said, "Oh, look, if you wanted that badly, Adam, you have it." So he got it. God said, "There's one left for you, women. There you go, multiple orgasms."
Thank you very much. You've been fantastic. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.